Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Aurora. The ship had been flying through deep space for 3 months now. They were looking for new planets that humans could live on someday. The stars looked like tiny diamonds. Against the black of space, Jake was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. He had been exploring space for 20 years. He had seen many strange things, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to happen. "Sir, I'm getting something weird on the scanner," said Lisa Park. She was the ship's communications officer. Lisa was young, only 25, but she was very good at her job. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel. Jake walked over to look at her screen. What kind of weird?
Ice.
Sir, but it's not like anything we've seen before. It's too organized to be natural. Someone is sending this on purpose.
Dr. Sam Rodriguez came over to look too.
It was the ship's science.
Officer. Sam was a smart man who loved solving puzzles. "The pattern is very complex," he said. "This is definitely made by intelligent beings." Jake felt his heart beat faster. This could be it. This could be humanity's first contact with aliens. Where is it coming from? The star map. From the edge of this solar system, there's a big planet out there, and something is orbiting around it. "Set course for that location," Jake ordered, "but keep us ready to run if we need to." The Aurora changed direction and flew toward the signal. As they got closer, they could see what was sending it. It was a huge space station, bigger than any city on Earth. But something was wrong with it. Parts of it were dark. Other parts showed signs of damage. "Sir, I'm seeing weapon damage on that station," said Tony Martinez, the ship's engineer. Tony was a short man with strong hands who could fix anything. "Looks like someone had a big fight there." Jake made a decision. "We're going to dock with that station." Lisa, "Try to talk to whoever's on board." "Tony, get ready to fix anything that might be broken." "Sam, scan everything you can, sir." "Is that safe?" asked Amy Collins. She was a Marine sergeant who protected the ship. Amy was tough and never backed down from a fight. "We have to try," Jake said. "If there are people in trouble out there, we need to help them." The Aurora moved slowly toward the damaged station. As they got closer, they could see it was even bigger than they thought. The metal walls were covered with strange symbols. Some sections were completely destroyed. "Getting a response," Lisa said excitedly. "Someone is trying to talk to us." Voice came through the speakers. It sounded strange, like music mixed with words. The ship's computer worked hard to translate it. "Please help us," the voice said. "We are dying. The enemy will return soon." Jake felt cold. "Tell them we're coming to help. Ask them if it's safe to dock." After a few minutes, the voice came back. "Yes, please come. Docking Bay 7 is still working. We will meet you there." The Aurora connected to the station. Jake put together a small team to go inside. He took Amy for protection, Tony in case they needed to fix something, and Sam to study anything they found. The airlock opened with a hiss. The air inside the station was thin but breathable. The lights were dim and everything felt cold. Their footsteps echoed in the empty halls. "This place gives me the creeps," Tony whispered. They followed the directions to a large room in the center of the station. When they entered, they saw their first aliens. There were about 20 of them, and they looked nothing like humans. The aliens were tall and thin, almost like they were made of glass. Their skin was see-through, and Jake could see their bones underneath. They had large eyes that glowed with a soft blue light. They moved very slowly and carefully. One of the aliens stepped forward. "I am Vexka," it said, through a small device that translated its words. "I am the leader of what remains of my people. I'm Commander Jake Morrison," Jake replied. "We got your signal and came to help." "What happened here?" Vexka's large eyes became sad. "The hegemony came. They destroy everything. They take our worlds, our people, everything. We tried to run, but they followed us." "Who is the hegemony?" Sam asked. "They are the enemy of all life," Vexka explained. "They have been taking over star systems for many years. They have millions of ships. They never stop. They never show mercy." Amy stepped forward. "How many of you are left?" We were 17 different species once, Vexka said. Billions of us lived on peaceful worlds. Now we are just a few hundred survivors hiding in this broken station. Jake looked around the room. He could see the fear in the aliens' glowing eyes. These beings had lost everything. Hey, why didn't you fight back? Amy asked. Vex-Ka looked confused. Fight. We do not understand this word in the way you mean it. We are builders, creators, explorers. We have never needed to hurt others. The humans looked at each other. Earth was very different from these peaceful worlds. Humans had been fighting each other and surviving dangerous situations for thousands of years. Tell us about the hegemony, Jake said. How do they fight? What do their ships look like? Vexka activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air, showing massive fleets of alien ships. The ships moved in perfect patterns, like a school of fish swimming together. Day. Work as one mind, Vexka explained. Each ship is controlled by the same intelligence. They attack in waves, destroying everything in their path. No one has ever defeated them. Sam studied the images carefully. These formations are very organized, but they're also very predictable. They've conquered 47 star systems. Vexa continued. They turn living worlds into empty rocks, take prisoners and make them part of their collective mind. How long before they come here? Jake asked. Soon, Vexka said. They are only a few systems away. When they arrive, they will finish what they started. Tony looked at the damaged station around them. We need to get you people out of here. Our ship isn't big enough for everyone, but we can take some of you back to Earth. Earth? Vexka asked. Our homeworld, Jake explained. We have ships there, and people who can help. Vexka's eyes grew brighter. Your world still has warriors. It's people who remember how to fight. We have armies, Amy said. We have weapons. We protect our people. Then perhaps there is hope, Vexka said, but you must understand. The hegemony is not like the enemies you have faced before. They are beyond counting. They are beyond stopping. Jake stood up straight. We've faced impossible odds before. That's what humans do. We survive. Over the next few hours, the human team learned everything they could about the hegemony. They studied the enemy's tactics, their technology, and their weaknesses. They also learned about the peaceful species that had been destroyed. These people never had to fight for anything, Sam said quietly to Jake. They evolved on worlds where everything was easy. They never developed the skills we take for granted. It's going to be their weakness, Amy added, and maybe our strength. It was time to leave. Jake made a promise to Vexka. We're going back to Earth to warn our people. We'll return with help, I give you my word. Thank you, Commander Morrison, Vexka said. You may be the galaxy's only hope. As the Aurora pulled away from the damaged station, Jake looked back. At the aliens they were leaving behind, he knew that humanity was about to face its greatest challenge ever. But he also knew that humans had something the other species didn't have. They had learned to fight, to survive, and to never give up. The journey back to Earth would take 2 months. During that time, Jake and his team would prepare their report. They would tell Earth's leaders about the coming threat. They would explain that humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and that their new neighbors needed their help. The stars looked different now. They were no longer just points of light in the darkness. They were homes to living beings who were crying out for help. Jake Morrison knew that humanity would answer that call. The age of galactic war was about to begin. The Deathworlders from Earth would be ready. 3 months had passed since the Aurora returned to Earth. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the largest meeting room he had ever seen. The room was built inside a mountain in Colorado. Military leaders from every nation on Earth were there. The walls showed huge star maps with blinking red dots marking enemy positions. Admiral Patricia Hayes walked to the front of the room. She was a strong woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. The president had put her in charge of Earth's space defense. Everyone in the room knew that the fate of humanity was in her hands. The enemy will reach our outer colonies in 18 months, she announced. Her voice was calm but serious. Our alien friends have given us detailed information about the hegemony. They have over 10 million ships. They have destroyed 47 star systems. And they are coming for us. General Marcus Stone raised his hand. He was an old soldier with gray hair and scars on his face. What about the other alien species? Can't they help us fight? Most of them are dead, said Karen White, the head of Earth's intelligence service. She was a thin woman who always wore dark suits. Ones who survived are scattered across the galaxy. They don't have weapons. They don't have armies. They never learned how to fight. Colonel Ryan Tucker stood up from his seat. He was the leader of Earth's Space Marines. Ryan was young but tough, with muscles built from years of training. So we're alone. How do we fight an enemy that has 1,000 ships for every one of ours? Admiral Hayes pressed a button on her control panel. The star map changed to show Earth's solar system. Hundreds of new dots appeared around the planets. We're not the same species that sent out exploration ships 2 years ago? Every country on Earth has been building warships. We now have 600 heavy battleships, 3,000 smaller warships, and 15,000 fighter ships. Forward, she was a scientist who had been studying the alien refugees. Alina was young with red hair and green eyes. She had spent weeks learning about the different species that the hegemony had destroyed. The other species all came from what they call garden worlds, she explained. These were planets with perfect weather, lots of food, and no dangerous animals. They never had to fight for survival. They never had wars. They never had to become strong. She changed the display to show Earth, but Earth is different. The aliens call it a death world. They say our gravity is too strong, our weather is too violent, our animals are too dangerous. They don't understand how we survived here. Captain Ben Parker spoke up from the back of the room. He had just returned from defending a human colony from pirates. Ben was a tall man with brown hair and kind eyes. The hegemony fights like a machine. All their ships move together. They don't think for themselves. They just follow orders from their leaders. That could be our advantage, Admiral Hayes said. We don't just fight to win battles. We fight to stay alive. We've been doing that. For thousands of years, General Stone looked at the star maps again. What do we know about their technology? Dr. Foster activated another display. Their ships are fast and well-armed. But they're designed for fighting enemies who can't fight back. They expect their targets to run away or surrender quickly. They've never faced an enemy that fights back hard, Colonel Tucker added. Every species they've conquered gave up after losing a few battles. Admiral Hayes nodded. That's where we're different. Humans don't give up. We get stronger when things get bad. A new voice spoke from the corner of the room. It was Vexka, the alien leader they had rescued. He had been living on Earth for 2 months, learning about human culture. Your species confuses us, he said through his translator. You have wars among yourselves, yet you also help strangers. You destroy your own planet, yet you also protect it. You are violent, yet you are also kind. Jake Morrison, who had been quiet until now, stood up. That's because we learned to survive on a world that tried to kill us every day. We had to become fighters, but we also had to work together. We had to be smart and tough and never give up. The hegemony doesn't understand. This Vexka continued. They think all intelligent species are like us. Peaceful, predictable, easy to control. They have never met a species like yours. Admiral Hayes brought up a new display showing the hegemony's advance toward Earth. We have one advantage they don't expect. We think for ourselves. Each of our ship captains can make decisions without waiting for orders. Each of our soldiers can adapt to new situations. But we're still outnumbered, General Stone pointed out. Even if we're better fighters, they have more ships. Numbers aren't everything, said Colonel Tucker. A pack of wolves can bring down a buffalo 10 times their size if they work together and use the right tactics. Dr. Foster added more information. The hegemony's ships are controlled by a collective mind. They're like parts of a giant computer. If we can disrupt their communications, they become confused and weak. So we target their command ships, Admiral. Hayes decided. Cut off the head, and the body dies. Captain Parker looked worried. But what if we're wrong? What if they're stronger than we think? Then we fight anyway, Jake said. That's what humans do. We fight even when we can't win, because sometimes that's the only way to survive. The meeting continued for hours. Military leaders shared information about Earth's defenses. Scientists explained what they had learned about alien technology. Everyone knew that the next 18 months would determine If humanity survived or joined the long list of species that the hegemony had destroyed, Admiral Hayes assigned tasks to everyone. General Stone would coordinate the defense of Earth itself. Colonel Tucker would train Marines for boarding enemy ships. Captain Parker would lead the first attack squadron. Dr. Foster would continue studying alien technology. "What about the refugees?" Jake asked. "The aliens we rescued, can they help us?" "They're trying," Dr. Foster replied. "But they don't understand warfare. They're helping us build better computers and communication systems. They're teaching us about space navigation. They can't teach us how to fight. We don't need them to," Admiral Hayes said. "We already know how to fight. We just need to learn how to fight in space." As the meeting ended, the leaders filed out of the room. Each one had a job to do. Each one knew that failure meant the end of everything they cared about. Jake walked over to Vexka. "Are you afraid?" he asked. The alien's large eyes glowed dimly. "Yes, but I have hope now. Your species gives me hope." "Why?" "Because you choose to fight, even when you're afraid." "My people ran when the hegemony came. We hid. We hoped someone else would save us. But you're different. You see an impossible enemy, and you prepare for war." "The stars. Maybe that's why we survived our homeworld. Maybe all the wars and disasters and dangers made us stronger." "The hegemony will learn this soon," Vexka said. "They think they're coming to conquer another peaceful species. Instead, they're coming to fight Deathworlders. They don't know what that means." "They'll learn," Jake promised. Outside the mountain, Earth was changing. Factories worked day and night building weapons and ships. People joined the military in record numbers. Scientists worked on new technologies. Everyone knew that their world was about to be tested like never before. The alien refugees watched in amazement as humanity prepared for war. They had never seen anything like it. Entire cities were being converted into military bases. Peaceful farmers were learning to use weapons. Artists were designing camouflage patterns. Teachers were studying battle tactics. "Your species is remarkable," Vexka told Admiral Hayes as they watched the preparations. "You turn your entire world into a weapon when you need to." "We do what we must to protect what we love," she replied. "That's what makes us human." The countdown had begun. 18 months to prepare for the greatest battle in galactic history. 18 months to turn a single world into a fortress that could stand against 10 million enemy ships. The Deathworlders were getting ready for war. Captain Nick Davis stood on the bridge of his warship, the Thunder. His ship was part of a small patrol fleet exploring the outer edges of human space. They had been looking for signs of the hegemony for 3 weeks. Nick was a veteran pilot, with 20 years of experience, but he had never faced an enemy like this before. "Sir, we're picking up movement on the long-range scanners," said Lieutenant Commander Sophie Chen, his tactical officer. Sophie was young but smart, with quick reflexes and sharp eyes. She had graduated at the top of her class from the Space Academy. Nick moved to look at her screen. "What kind of movement?" "Multiple contacts, sir. They're coming from the direction of the Vega system. The computer counts 12 ships." Nick felt his heart rate increase. This could be it. This could be humanity's first real battle with the hegemony. Sound battle stations. "Get me Admiral Hayes on the communication channel." Alarms began ringing throughout the ship. Crew members ran to their positions. The gun turrets rotated into firing position. The shields powered up to full strength. "Sir, Admiral Hayes is unavailable," reported Communications Officer Pete Williams. "The nearest Earth fleet is 6 hours away." Nick made a quick decision. "We can't wait for backup. If these are hegemony ships, we need to know what we're facing. All ships, prepare for combat." The Thunder was joined by 2 other human warships, the Lightning and the Storm. Each ship carried a crew of 200 people. Together they represented humanity's first line of defense against the galactic threat. "Enemy ships are now visible on the main screen," Sophie announced. Nick looked at the display and felt a chill run down his spine. The hegemony ships were unlike anything he had ever seen. They were long and curved, like sea creatures swimming through space. Their hulls were dark and smooth, with no visible weapons or engines. "They're beautiful," whispered Lieutenant Janet Brown, the ship's navigator. But also terrifying. Enemy ships moved in perfect formation. They flew in a diamond pattern, each ship exactly the same distance from the others. They moved together like they were connected by invisible strings. Sir, they're not changing. Of course, Sophie reported. They're heading straight for us. It's no evasive action, no attempt to communicate. Nick studied the enemy formation. Something was wrong. The hegemony ships were flying directly into his firing range without any attempt to defend themselves. They're not acting like they expect a fight, he realized. Think we're going to run away. Should we run, sir? Asked Lieutenant Brown. No, Nick said firmly. Every species they've faced has run from them. That's why they always win. But we're not running. We're going to show them what humans can do. The enemy ships came closer. Nick could see that they were larger than his own vessels, but they were still flying in that perfect formation. They made no attempt to spread out or take defensive positions. All ships target the lead enemy vessel, Nick ordered. My command. The human ships broke formation and spread out. Each captain chose his own position and angle of attack. This was something the hegemony had never seen before. Enemies who thought for themselves instead of following rigid patterns. Sir, the enemy ships are slowing down, Sophie reported. They seem confused by our movement. Nick smiled grimly. They've never faced opponents who don't fight by their rules. Fire all weapons. The space between the fleets lit up with energy beams and missile trails. The human ships attacked from 3 different angles using tactics they had learned from centuries of warfare on Earth. The first enemy ship exploded in a ball of fire. The others tried to maintain their formation, but they were being hit from directions they hadn't expected. 2 more ships were destroyed before they could return fire. Sir, the enemy is firing back, Sophie announced. The hegemony weapons were powerful, but predictable. Their ships fired in coordinated volleys, all aiming at the same target. But the human ships were moving too fast and changing direction too often. They're firing where we were, not where we are, Nick observed. They can't adapt to our tactics. Battle continued for 20 minutes. The human ships danced around the enemy formation, hitting them from unexpected angles and then disappearing before the hegemony could respond. Enemy ship number 7 is breaking formation, Sophie reported. It's trying to chase the lightning. Watched as one of the alien ships left the safety of the group to pursue Captain Mary Johnson's vessel. It was a mistake. The moment the enemy ship was alone, the thunder and the storm attacked it from both sides. Target destroyed, Sophie announced with satisfaction. The remaining enemy ships tried to reform their perfect diamond pattern, but there weren't enough of them left. The human ships had destroyed 8 of the 12 vessels, and the survivors were clearly confused. Sir, the enemy ships are retreating, reported Lieutenant Brown. Let them go, Nick decided. We need to capture one of their ships if we can. The Thunder moved toward a damaged hegemony vessel that was drifting in space. Its engines were destroyed, but the hull was still intact. This was their chance to learn about enemy technology. Boarding party, prepare to enter the enemy ship. Nick ordered. Sergeant Bill Rogers led a team of Marines onto the alien vessel. Bill was a tough soldier who had fought in many battles on Earth, but nothing had prepared him for what he found inside the hegemony ship. The corridors were dark and filled with a strange humming sound. The walls were covered with organic-looking patterns that seemed to pulse with their own light. It was like being inside a living creature. Sir, we found the bridge, Bill reported over his radio, but the crew is ... unusual. Nick listened as Bill described what they had found. The hegemony crew members were thin, pale beings with large black eyes. They moved slowly and seemed confused without their ship's guidance systems. They're not acting like individual people, Bill continued. They're more like parts of a machine. When we captured one, the others stopped moving completely. Dr. Sam Rodriguez, who had been studying the alien refugees, joined the conversation over the radio. It matches what Vexka told us. The hegemony doesn't have individual minds. They're all connected to a central intelligence. Bring some of them back to the Thunder, Nick ordered. We need to learn everything we can about how they think. The boarding party returned with 3 captured hegemony beings and several pieces of their technology. The aliens didn't resist or try to escape. They sat quietly in the ship's holding cells, staring at nothing. "Sir, Admiral Hayes is on the communication channel," Pete announced. Nick activated the main screen. Admiral Hayes appeared, looking worried. "Captain Davis, we received your battle report. Are you all right?" "We're fine, Admiral. We destroyed 8 enemy ships and captured survivors. But there's something you need to know. They fight nothing like what we expected." "Explain." "They're not warriors, Admiral. They're more like worker bees, following orders from their queen. They couldn't adapt when we changed our tactics. Couldn't think for themselves." Admiral Hayes looked thoughtful. "That's interesting. What about their technology?" "Their ships are advanced, but they're designed for fighting enemies who can't fight back. They expect their targets to either run away or surrender quickly." Dr. Rodriguez joined the conversation. "Admiral, I've been studying the prisoners. They're not individuals at all. They share a collective consciousness. Each one is like a finger on a hand, controlled by the same brain. That explains their perfect coordination," Admiral Hayes realized. "But it also means they have a weakness. If we can disrupt their communication network, they become helpless." "There's more," Nick added. "When we destroyed their command ship, the others became confused. They couldn't maintain their formation. They didn't know what to do." Admiral Hayes smiled for the first time in weeks. "This is good news. We can use this against them." The battle at Vega had been a small engagement, but it had taught humanity valuable lessons. The hegemony was not invincible. They were strong when fighting predictable enemies, but they struggled against opponents who could think creatively. News of the victory spread quickly through human space. For the first time since learning about the hegemony threat, people began to hope that they might actually survive. Vega studied the battle reports with amazement. "Your species achieved something we thought was impossible," he told Admiral Hayes. "You defeated hegemony ships in open combat." "It was just a small battle," Admiral Hayes replied. "The real test is still coming?" "But you proved something important," Vega insisted. "You proved that they can be beaten. In all the years since the hegemony began their conquest, no species has ever won a battle against them. Until now." Word of humanity's victory began to spread through the galaxy. Species that had been hiding from the hegemony for years heard whispers about the Deathworlders, who had achieved the impossible. On distant worlds, in hidden colonies and refugee camps, beings who had given up hope began to dream of freedom. Again, maybe, just maybe, someone had finally come who could stand against the darkness. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy through fear and the belief that resistance was useless. But now that belief was cracking. The humans had shown that the enemy could bleed. Captain Nick Davis looked out at the stars and knew that everything had changed. The galaxy's most feared enemy had finally met opponents who refused to be afraid.
Ow.
The real war was just beginning. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood in the command center of the massive battleship Defiance. Around her, hundreds of officers worked at their stations, watching screens that showed the largest space battle in galactic history, or the hegemony had brought their main fleet to destroy humanity once and for all. "Enemy count is now at 2 million ships," reported Commander Alex Johnson from his position at the tactical station. Alex was a calm man who never got excited, even in the worst situations. "They're maintaining standard attack formation." Patricia looked at the display showing the enemy fleet. It was like looking at a moving city in space. The hegemony ships, stretched across the star system in perfect geometric patterns, they moved together like a single organism, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "How many ships do we have?" she asked. 50,000, Admiral, replied Captain Steve Miller, her intelligence officer. "Every human warship in the galaxy is here. We also have ships from 12 alien species that joined us after Vega." Patricia nodded. The victory at Vega had changed everything. Word had spread through the galaxy that the hegemony could be defeated. Slowly, other species had begun to emerge from hiding to join the human cause. "The odds are still 40-1. Against us," noted Colonel Derek Hayes, who commanded the fighter squadrons. Derek was Patricia's younger brother, a brave pilot who had never lost a battle. "Better odds than our ancestors faced sometimes," Patricia replied. Remember the Battle of Thermopylae? Remember the Alamo? Humans have always done their best work when outnumbered. The battle was taking place in the Alpha Centauri system, humanity's first colony outside Earth. If the hegemony won here, they would have a clear path to Earth itself. Everything depended on the next few hours. Admiral Captain Maria Santos is requesting permission to begin the flanking maneuver, reported Communications Officer Linda Clark. Permission granted, Patricia said. Tell Maria to hit them hard and fast. On the left side of the battlefield, Captain Maria Santos led a group of fast attack ships toward the enemy formation. Maria was known for her aggressive tactics and her ability to think quickly under pressure. Her ships moved like sharks through water, darting between the larger enemy vessels. Remember, we're not trying to destroy their whole fleet, Maria told her captains over the radio. We're trying to confuse them, make them break formation, force them to think instead of just following orders. The human ships attacked the edges of the hegemony formation like wolves nipping at a herd of buffalo. They would strike quickly, destroy a few enemy ships, and then disappear before the main force could respond. Meanwhile, Colonel Derek Hayes led his fighter squadrons in coordinated strikes against the enemy command ships. The fighters were small and fast, able to slip through the gaps in the enemy formation. Target those ships with the extra antennas, Derek ordered his pilots. Those are their communication centers. Without them, the fleet can't coordinate. Lieutenant Bob Taylor was one of Derek's best pilots. He flew his fighter through a storm of enemy fire, focusing on a large command ship at the center of the formation. I'm going in, he announced over the radio. Bob's fighter dodged between energy beams and missiles. The enemy weapons were powerful, but they were designed to hit large, slow targets. A single fighter moving at maximum speed was almost impossible. To hit, Bob fired his missiles at the command ship's communication array. The explosion lit up space like a small sun. Immediately, the ships around the destroyed command vessel began to move erratically. Direct hit on enemy Command Ship 7, Derek reported to Admiral Hayes. Local enemy units are showing signs of confusion. Back on the Defiance, Dr. Sam Rodriguez watched the battle from the science station. He had been studying the captured hegemony prisoners for months, learning how their collective mind worked. Admiral, their command network is starting to fragment, he reported. When we destroy a command ship, all the vessels connected to it lose coordination. How many command ships do they have? Patricia asked. We've identified over 300. Sam replied. But if we can destroy enough of them, their entire fleet will fall apart. The battle raged for hours. Human ships fought with the desperation of a species facing extinction. They used every trick they had learned from centuries of warfare. They attacked from unexpected directions. They used the asteroid fields as cover. They coordinated complex maneuvers that the enemy couldn't predict, Captain Laura Kim commanded. The heavy cruiser Retribution, she was a veteran of many battles, known for her courage and her refusal to retreat. When she saw an opportunity to strike at the enemy flagship, she didn't hesitate. All power to forward shields, she ordered her crew. We're going straight through their defensive line. The Retribution charged toward the center of the enemy formation. Enemy ships fired everything they had at the lone human vessel, but Laura's ship kept coming. Her shields glowed white-hot from the energy impacts, but they held. Ma'am, we're taking heavy damage, reported her engineer, Lieutenant Carl Brown. Keep us moving, Laura replied. We only need to get close enough to launch. The boarding pods. The Retribution smashed through the enemy defensive screen like a battering ram. As soon as they were close to the flagship, Laura launched her secret weapon, a team of human Marines in armored boarding pods. Sergeant Bobby Clark led the Marine assault team. Bobby was a tough soldier who had fought in the worst battles of the war. He and his men had trained specifically for this moment, boarding and capturing an enemy command ship. Remember, boys? Bobby told his team as their pod attached to the enemy hull. These aliens have never faced hand-to-hand combat. They don't know how to fight without their machines. The Marines cut through the hull and entered the enemy ship. The corridors were filled with hegemony crew members, but they moved slowly and seemed confused by the sudden attack. They're not. even trying to stop us," reported Corporal Jenny Davis over the radio. "They just stand there looking lost." The Marines fought their way to the ship's control center. The hegemony beings they encountered were helpless without guidance from their collective mind. They'd never learned to fight as individuals. "Control center secured," Bobby reported to Captain Kim. "The enemy crew has surrendered." With the flagship captured, the effects spread through the entire hegemony fleet. Ships that had been moving in perfect coordination suddenly became confused and disorganized. Some vessels collided with each other. Others fired on their own allies. By mistake. "Admiral, the enemy fleet is breaking apart," reported Commander Johnson with excitement in his voice. Patricia watched the display as the perfect hegemony formation collapsed into chaos. Ships scattered in all directions. Some tried to retreat. Others seemed to be fighting each other. "All ships press the attack," she ordered. "Don't give them time to reorganize." The human fleet, reinforced by their alien allies, swept through. The confused enemy forces, without their guiding intelligence, the hegemony ships were like lost children. They had no idea how to fight independently, Captain Nick Davis, the hero of Vega, led a squadron of destroyers against a group of enemy battleships. The massive alien vessels should have been able to crush his smaller ships easily.
Instead, they
Fired wildly in all directions, unable to coordinate their attacks. "It's like fighting blind giants," Nick reported. "They're powerful, but they can't see where to hit us." The battle that should have lasted days was over in 18 hours. When the shooting stopped, the space around Alpha Centauri was filled with the wreckage of hegemony ships. The enemy had lost over half their fleet. The survivors retreated in disorder, their perfect coordination shattered. Patricia stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking out at the battlefield. Human ships moved between the wreckage, rescuing survivors and capturing enemy technology. For the first time since the war began, she allowed herself to hope. "Admiral, we're receiving messages from across the galaxy," reported Captain Miller. "Species that have been hiding from the hegemony for decades are coming out of hiding. They want to join our alliance?" "Good," Patricia replied. "We're going to need all the help we can get." This was just one battle. The war isn't over yet. But everyone knew that something fundamental had changed. The hegemony had seemed invincible for so long that many species had forgotten what freedom looked like. Now, for the first time in decades, resistance seemed possible. On worlds across the galaxy, beings who had lived in fear began to dream of liberation. The humans had proven that the hegemony could be defeated. More importantly, they had shown that the galaxy's oppressed peoples didn't have to face their oppressors alone. The tide of war had turned, and the Deathworlders from Earth were leading the charge toward victory. 6 months after the great victory at Alpha Centauri, the galaxy looked completely different. Admiral Patricia Hayes now commanded the largest fleet in galactic history. Her ships swept through star system after star system, freeing worlds that had been under hegemony control for decades. The command ship Unity was 3 times larger than any vessel humanity had ever built. It served as the headquarters for the Galactic Liberation Fleet. Ships from dozens of different species flew alongside human warships. The Zephyrians provided advanced technology. The Kalani offered their knowledge of space navigation. The Morgoth contributed their powerful shields. "Admiral, we're approaching the Andromeda sector," reported Captain Chris Miller, who now served as Fleet Intelligence Officer. Chris had been promoted after his excellent work tracking enemy movements. Is their last stronghold. Patricia looked at the main display. The hegemony had retreated to a massive artificial structure orbiting a dying star. The space station was larger than most planets, bristling with weapons and surrounded by the remains of their once mighty fleet. "How many enemy ships?" she asked. 50,000, replied Commander Johnson. "They've pulled back every surviving vessel to defend this position." General Marcus Stone joined them on the bridge. He had been leading ground assaults on liberated worlds, helping freed populations rebuild their societies. "Our intelligence says this station houses the central intelligence that controls the entire hegemony." "The brain of the beast," Patricia said quietly. "We destroy it, the whole collective collapses." Dr. Sam Rodriguez studied readings from the science station. The structure is heavily fortified. It's protected by energy shields we've never seen before. Their remaining ships are positioned in perfect defensive formations. Colonel Derek Hayes, now commanding all fighter operations, looked at the tactical display. They've learned from our previous battles. They're not using the same predictable patterns anymore. They're still connected to their collective mind, Patricia observed. But they're adapting. They're becoming more dangerous as they get desperate. The final battle began as human ships approached the massive enemy stronghold. The hegemony forces fought with a fury they had never shown before. They knew this was their last chance to survive. Captain Maria Santos led the first attack wave. Her ships darted between the enemy defensive lines, drawing their fire and looking for weak spots in their formation. "They're fighting smarter," she reported over the radio. "But they're also more predictable when they're scared." The space around the enemy station filled with the light of energy weapons and exploding ships. The hegemony defenders fought desperately, but they were facing an enemy they could no longer understand. The human tactics had evolved during months of warfare. Captain Nick Davis commanded a group of heavy battleships that hammered the station's outer defenses. "Their shields are holding," he reported. "We need to find another way in." "I have an idea," said Captain Laura Kim from the bridge of her ship. "The Retribution." Laura had become famous for her daring boarding actions. "What if we don't try to break through the shields? What if we go around them?" Patricia understood immediately. "You want to teleport Marines directly inside the station? The alien refugees?" "Taught us how to build short-range teleporters," Laura explained. "We can send boarding parties past their defenses." It was incredibly dangerous. The Marines would be teleported into an unknown enemy facility, with no backup and no way to retreat. But it might be their only chance to reach the Central Intelligence. "Do it," Patricia ordered. General Stone personally led the ground assault. He had fought in more battles than any other human commander, and he wanted to be there when the war finally ended. With him went 500 of humanity's best soldiers. The teleporter beam delivered them directly into the heart of the enemy station. The corridors were vast and organic-looking, like the inside of a giant living creature. Strange lights pulsed in the walls, and the air hummed with electrical energy. "Stay together," Stone ordered his troops. "Remember, we're looking for the central control chamber. It's where their brain is located." The Marines moved through the alien structure, fighting past automated defenses and confused enemy soldiers. The hegemony beings they encountered seemed lost without clear orders from their collective mind. Sergeant Bobby Clark led a squad of Marines down a corridor lined with massive computers. "Sir, I think we're getting close," he reported. "Energy readings are off the charts up ahead." They reached a huge chamber filled with organic machinery. In the center was something that looked like a giant brain made of metal and flesh. Cables and wires connected it to thousands of smaller devices. Lights flashed across its surface in complex patterns. Dr. Rodriguez said over the radio from the Unity. He was monitoring the assault through the Marines' helmet cameras. "That's the Central Intelligence. It's been controlling the entire hegemony for centuries." The intelligence seemed to sense their presence. Screens around the chamber lit up with images of the Marines. A voice spoke in dozens of different languages. Trying to communicate with the intruders. "We are eternal," the voice said. "We have consumed 1,000 worlds. We will not be stopped by a single species." General Stone stepped forward, his weapon aimed at the central brain. "You're wrong. You picked the wrong species to fight, humans. Don't give up. You are from the Death World," the intelligence said with what sounded like surprise. "We did not understand. We thought you were like the others, weak, peaceful, easy to control." "We're nothing like the others," Stone replied. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight everything, predators, diseases, natural disasters, each other. You never had a chance against us." The intelligence tried to activate its defenses, but human engineers had been cutting its connections throughout the station. It was losing control of its own systems. "You have destroyed our perfect order," it said. "Without us, the galaxy will return to chaos." "Good," Stone said. "Chaos is better than slavery." He fired his weapon at the central brain. The organic machinery exploded in a shower of sparks and strange fluids. Around the chamber, the lights went out one by one. The effect was immediate. Throughout the station, enemy soldiers stopped fighting and stood still like broken machines. In space, the defending ships lost formation and began drifting aimlessly. Central intelligence destroyed, General Stone reported. The hegemony is finished. The liberation was swift after that. Without their guiding mind, the remaining enemy forces surrendered or fled. The massive station became quiet as its automated systems shut down. On the bridge of the Unity, Admiral Hayes watched the last enemy ships retreat into deep space. The war that had threatened to destroy all intelligent life in the galaxy was finally over. Admiral, we're receiving surrender messages from hegemony outposts across the galaxy, reported Captain Miller. Their entire command structure has collapsed. Dr. Rodriguez studied the readings from his instruments. The collective consciousness that held them together for centuries is gone. The individual beings are free for the first time in their lives. Vega, who had been serving as an advisor to the human fleet, approached Admiral Hayes. Your species has achieved something we thought was impossible. You have freed the galaxy from its greatest threat. We didn't do it alone, Patricia replied. Every liberated species contributed to this victory. 1 year later, representatives from over 100 species gathered on the space station Unity, which now orbited Earth. The station had been rebuilt as a symbol of the new Galactic Alliance. Delegates from across the galaxy came to establish the Galactic Council, democratic government that would ensure no single power could threaten the freedom of others. Vega was elected as the first president of the Galactic Council. In his inaugural speech, he spoke about the lessons learned from the war. We owe our freedom to the species we once called Deathworlders, he announced to the assembled delegates. Came from a harsh world that made them strong. That strength not to conquer us, but to free us. Admiral Hayes, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Council, stood to address the assembly. We didn't save you because we're better than you. We saved you because we understand what it means to fight for survival. Every species here has that same potential. The galaxy had learned valuable lessons. The peaceful species began to develop. Their own defenses, not to conquer others, but to protect themselves. The former hegemony worlds were slowly rebuilding, their populations learning to think and act as individuals for the first time. Captain Nick Davis, now an admiral himself, led exploration fleets into unknown regions of space. They were no longer alone, but accompanied by ships from dozens of allied species. Together, they searched for new worlds and new civilizations to welcome into the Galactic community. The refugees who had once hidden in damaged stations now returned to rebuild their homeworlds. The Zephyrians reconstructed their beautiful crystal cities. The Kalani restored their orbital gardens. The Morgoth began mining asteroids again to supply the growing galactic economy. Dr. Alina Foster established the Institute for Galactic Understanding, where beings from different worlds could learn about each other's cultures.